Good morning, good evening, namaste, hola, bonjour, and maharapan. This is Namya Joshi, your host for the day. Welcome to episode 33 of the podcast Each One Teach 10, an amazing world of STEM, an inspiring venture where we'll be discussing that STEM is part of every day for every kid. We all will be learning together how to build a STEM culture. Well, for today, my guest is Ms. Neeru Mittal, ICT Coordinator, STEM Educator at SRDAV Public School, Dayanand Vihar, Delhi in India. And I'm very proud to share that she is a winner of National ICT Award for Innovation in the field of technology, education technology, with numerous accolades added to her name. So, how are you doing today, ma'am?
Hi, Namya. I'm doing really fine. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for being here. So, before we start, ma'am, we would love to know more about you and the work that you're doing.
Yes, actually, I just love my mantra is to teach the students the way they want to learn. That's how it all started. So I always wanted to bring more life and more, zest into my classroom. I wanted to make learning fun. So I started on this journey of ICT where I indulge in ICT tools. I indulge in a lot of technology tools to bring variation, to bring, creativity into my classroom, foster the learning skills of my students, and also, of course, to bring digital literacy. So I started off in 2014, 2013, and then there was no looking back. Apart from teaching my students and helping them win a lot of accolades, like my students have gone on international platforms, national platforms, and won accolades for the country. I have also taken up STEM teaching for girls, especially because I feel that not only in India but in the entire world, STEM is limited to it is gender specific. Like, there's a lot of gender divide when we come to STEM education. So I've worked for that. I've started at the ground level when I used to have classes after school for my students. Uh, Taken by my students, sorry, and they were we had taken some girls, we had called some girls from nearby communities, and we would take STEM classes for them. This helped me in two ways, like my students skills were also enhanced, as well as the girls, they could learn STEM and they could do something. Then we took up a robotics like in a big way. We started using robotics from waste, where students would create simple robotics from waste material like ice cream sticks and all. And this also was carried forward to a lot of community schools, a lot of schools where underprivileged students were there. Apart from this, I am a social emotional learning evangelist, and I'm really into this that we have to, take care of the mental health of the social well-being of our students if we actually want them to learn something. And for that, I've created lessons in which I use technology to foster self. Also, I've been working very closely with the government of Uttarakhand, where I'm taking classes, ICT classes for the rural, very remote areas in Uttarakhand, where technology is something like a dream even today. But I'm really thankful that I've been able to reach almost 40,000 students over there through training almost 5,000 teachers. So that was a big milestone where I could train the teachers in various ICT tools and improve their education perception, as well as how they improving their ICT tools, their knowledge in ICT tools, and how they could spread up and do something for their own community also.
Wow, that's amazing, ma'am. And I cannot agree more about how important it is to have a lively classroom because, like, when we just have a teacher explaining in the classroom by just writing on the board, I personally can understand how, like, dull the classroom becomes. But when we have teachers who can make the classroom lively, I can see the feeling that when we have different ways of explaining and different modes of learning in the classroom, the same subject, it does become engaging. And like that's what I love about the educators these days, who are bringing up different ways of learning and different ways of engaging students in the classroom. And like also talked about the STEM gender gap. Like I've been noticing that, ma'am, like even I love to work upon the same thing about STEM. And that's what basically the podcast is about. Because like I know you must be knowing about the ratio of STEM workers in India. That is
Right.
just like 28% of women and 72% of men. And what we aim to do is to have 21st century skills for the students with 6 C's. So then we haven't still been able to achieve the gender balance and gender inequality. So like that's the like most important thing that we have to work upon. And it's so lovely to hear that you're taking up initiatives to make change.
Thank you, Zamia. And that is, yeah, one of my priorities here.
Right, ma'am. So, moving on to the next question, ma'am. You're a computer science teacher who also serves as a STEM coordinator. So, how do you use it to reach out to the students both locally and globally?
I think, Namya, STEM fosters creativity and also divergent thinking. And using STEM, we can bring about an interdisciplinary approach. For example, if I reach out to my students locally, I am a computer science teacher. I teach Python. So at the end of the every lesson, or maybe at the end of every semester, we give a project to our students. So what I do is I make sure that those projects are interdisciplinary, so that it is not just a language they're learning, just not the technicalities, but they have to use their technical skills, use their coding skills to solve some real world problems. So what I do is I give problems to them. For example, recently I gave them a project in which the name was Programming with Empathy, where they had to use their coding skills to solve a real world problem. For example, to solve the problem during COVID, we have had so many ups and downs in the lives of so many students and their parents and all. So they created programs in which the students could enjoy. I mean, they could share their mental stresses, and then they could find solutions for that. That is just one of the examples. As far as global reach is concerned, we have had projects where I've just like I was saying, programming with empathy has gone globally. I had taken part, my students and myself and my colleague had taken part in Global Play Day, in which this was taken up. Programming with empathy was taken up, and I've had various projects in which I have involved students from many countries who have taken up STEM. You know, and they have helped. There has been a lot of collaboration between those students and my students, and there has been a lot of learning. So that's how actually uh, STEM has had a reach overall. We also had robotics classes. Like I said, we had robotics from waste. So that session was very important for me as well as my students. And my students then became mentors for students globally. And they took those sessions, and we had we could say, a chain reaction of robotics in the entire global community of mine.
That sounds so good, ma'am. That you're able to try to solve the real world problems through coding. Like you talked about programming with empathy. So that also reminded me of one of the projects that was given to us in our school to make, just in, let's say, a program about using like for a job something that you have to choose a job and then you have to apply for that using Python, and it was just for the like beginners. But then I thought, like, why not take it towards a different level? And I was learning about website designing that time. So I created this website for SRSC, that is Sustainable Rozgar Sustainable Zindagi. So it was basically about designing with Django, HTML, and Python. And I was talking about how we can provide jobs to the people who have lost the jobs this year in the COVID pandemic, and give them the jobs which are like providing with good money, and also they're able to learn different things. That's a like example that I wanted to share with you, ma'am.
Yeah,
And like as you said about global learning, ma'am, STEM excites everyone. So like we all can join hands together around the world to make this world fully STEM based.
yeah. Thank you, Dhamma. That's really a great idea you've given for my project, and I can give that to my students also now.
Right, thank you, ma'am. Okay, so moving on to the next question, ma'am. I was just reading about you that you are a Teach SDGs ambassador and you assist your kids construct inventive robots out of waste that you just told me right now to solve the societal problems. So, can you throw a little bit more light upon that, ma'am?
Yes, I will do that. See, there is an annual competition called AI for Good. So in that, what happens is we have to. It is organized by Microsoft, and we have to solve a real world problem. Again, as I said, I've spoken about the robotics from waste, so I will not talk about that again. But I'll talk about this project in which our students, they were invited on the world stage to solve some problems. So one of my teams, we had many teams in my school. So one of my teams, they created a, a calculator, we would say a speaking calculator, which was helpful for people with who are visually impaired. So it was helpful for them. It was a working model in which the people could just speak out the calculation. Like, I would give an example. For example, a person who is visually impaired has gone to the bank, and he needs to do some calculations. So he would need a pencil and paper, but that because of his shortcoming, he cannot do that. He can simply speak into the calculator, do the calculations, and the calculator would give the answer back in voice. So that was one of the inventions done by my one of my students, and they won the national award for that also. And another thing, another feature in that was that students who are visually impaired, they could use it for creating interest in mathematics. So that was one thing, one of the projects in which STEM was used to do good. Apart from this, there have been many projects which done by many of our students who have made, for example, another one I would say is protecting the Taj Mahal from acid rain. This was one of the projects which was recognized by Microsoft also, and my classroom was one of the three classrooms in the entire world chosen for this project because of this project. In that, what happened is students, they used a Taj Mahal model, and they used a plastic sheet, and they used sensors. Sensors are a very important part of robotics. So they use sensors in which they could actually make a working model in which if we put a bit of water on the cover would come up over the Taj Mahal, and when the water would dry up, the cover would go down. So it was a working model created by the students. So it was actually what we try to do is we try to stimulate, not just do STEM for fun, but do STEM for the better good. And I feel STEM has got the capacity of changing the world if we do it properly.
That's so inspirational that your school and the project that you're doing working upon are so great. And basically, it's a whole immersive environment that we're going from tech for good to STEM for good as well, where we are like creating things for people who have disabilities and the special people, so they can make their life more easier. And I just love you talked about Taj Mahal and the acid rain. I mean, we study about that all the time, but we see very less people coming up with solutions these days about such problems. So that's so lovely to hear, ma'am. I would love to know more about that. I'll research more upon that, and I'm also going to add that in the description of my YouTube channel for people to see more about the project that your school has worked upon.
Thank you, Mamia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. So, moving on to the next question, ma'am. What are the changes that need to be made in STEM education that you believe will inspire more students, particularly girls, to pursue it, and how will this help?
Yeah, I think the government of India has done some, I mean, given us some imperative. They have given us some sort of boost for that. So not much has to be done, like, yeah, but it has to be implemented. What I'm talking about is the national education policy, which has made coding a must for class students, students of class 6 onwards. I would say start it from kindergarten. See, coding does not mean just using Python language or using some language. It means logic building. So why not start at the grassroots level and start in the pre-primary classes where students can simply be given a feel of how the computer looks like, how to use a keyboard. So what I'm trying to implement is the change that can be made is make just like English, maths, or other subjects compulsory, just make coding compulsory and make it as a skill. It is a skill which must be required, for a child, and make it fun. Do not, I would not say just put all the coding languages in class 6. As I said, start from beginning, just start giving them a feel of the computer, let them play with it. Then let us go through block based programming in which we have code blocks like Scratch, where students can see figures, they can program the figures. So what is required is, one, introduce coding from the beginning. Number two, use code based block programming. And number three, make it compulsory for girls also. Like, it should not be there that the boys are taking up coding. So just like we say physics, chemistry, if a child is taking physics and chemistry, it's compulsory. Make coding compulsory for girls also. Inspire girls. Let's have girls events. Let's have events in which we have girls. We can have for example, in class first or class second, we can have an inter-house competition where only girls are involved. So that is really going to help boost up the STEM education.
That again is very motivating, ma'am, for every girl and everybody in the world who wants to come upon for the STEM field and like education. And I truly love the thing that NEP has done is that coding is a must because it's not just your coding Python from kindergarten and all, but it's just like, coding is a part of day to day life. The problem is that we just might not notice it. Like my mother always gives me this example about like making a tea. So when making a tea, like there are steps involved, like you boil up the water, you put
Algorithm,
the
yeah.
things, and also I think that basically goes in
Mm,
a series, and then you go about doing coding in that way. And that's when we realize such things we can do coding easily. And it's not just like people go towards the tougher side, it just becomes more and more interesting, because that's what my experience is. Because like coding is a must, but also at the same time understanding how coding can be beneficial for you. It's not just for the sake of doing coding, but to understand how beautiful exactly it is. And I love the challenges girls can do for it. Like they do have the thing inside them that they want to learn, they want to do coding. I think now what lacks is motivation that does not come from their side, the parents side and all. So like that's what we should start working upon, is telling the parents, telling the people who are working like behind them, and like the family and all, to motivate them to come forward for these fields, and not just like tell that you're made for playing with dolls, made for coloring and all, but you're made to do anything. Like what boys can do, so can girls do, if not
yeah,
better. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
exactly, exactly.
Right, ma'am. So I do have another question, ma'am, for you. That's like a question that I had right now. So what is your favorite hobby, ma'am?
Oh, my favorite hobby. See, when I was a child, it was different, but right now, my favorite hobby is researching. I don't want to sound boring, but yes, it is. I love to research. Like I read a lot. If I get anything, even if I'm sitting, I don't have my phone, I don't have my laptop, but I'm sitting and I just get a packet of chips, I'll just start reading there also. So reading is my favoriteest hobby. And because of reading, now research is my favorite hobby. I keep on researching on new tools, new things. If I simply get a cue that okay, this thing has come up, this is something which is really good, so I just go on to, I make it a point, I go onto the net and I research it. So that's one of my favorite hobbies nowadays.
Wow, that's not at all a
And
boring hobby, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
and traveling also, and traveling
Oh,
also.
that's great. That's one of my favorite hobbies too, ma'am. That I love to travel a lot. And also reading, because
Mm,
these days I've been reading this book called Allegiant. It's really a great book about the Divergent series. So, like, I also love to read a lot of the non-fiction and fiction books. So
mm,
that also motivates me to like research upon a lot. Like, I read this book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. So that's when
mhm.
I got a lot interested into psychology. It's basically so wonderful. Like when we read lots of books, we come to know about things happening around the world and happening inside our body as well. So that's great.
Right.
I love to know about your hobbies. Right, ma'am. So the next question I have for you is that you have done some pioneering work in social and emotional learning. So can you throw some light upon it? And why do you feel that social and emotional learning is important in today's scenario?
Yeah. So that is something which is really close to my heart, social emotional learning. I started off when this was a fairly new term. I would say 2018, 2017 rather, when social emotional learning was just coming up. But let me tell you one thing, it is something I can say old wine in a new bottle, because this has been there since the beginning. Social emotional learning has got some factors. There's some five factors like healthy relationships. You have a good students should have a gratitude way of gratitude, and lots of other things are there. So social emotional learning is very important for every child, because it is how, if a child is socially emotionally balanced nowadays, I mean, if you are balanced, the child will grow up to become responsible, sensitive, and a very good citizen. And they are more likely to be successful in life later on if you are socially emotionally balanced right now. So, what does it actually mean? This means making a child happy. Happiness is the biggest quotient. You are happy when you're learning, you're happy when you're playing, you're happy when you're eating, you're happy when you're sleeping. I mean, if you're happy, you are doing the best thing you can do to yourself. A happy child can learn, and a happy child cannot learn. I don't think so. Learning or cramming things is different, but having knowledge is different. So what I did for this is, I researched a lot on social emotional learning. I have visited a lot of websites and all. I've written research papers. Then I came up with the idea of using technology, because today's students, they would not read research papers, they will not read books, so they will go for technology. So I researched and I tried to map each of the social emotional learning competencies. There are 5 competencies on a tool, and there were some wonderful tools, some Microsoft tools, we have Flipgrid. I used Flipgrid to create a gratitude wall, in which I'll just give an example of 1 or 2 activities which I did in my school, and which I introduced to the entire community. I created a gratitude wall in which my students were asked to say thank you to 2 people or 3 people who helped them in any way during the day. So that was taken up. I created a Flipgrid in which the videos were aggregated, and at the end of 2 weeks or maybe a month, I used to have a session in which I used to play those videos. So students used to be very inspired. Okay, we should say thank you. So they developed a habit of saying thank you. Then there's another tool which we can say, it was there earlier, now it is not there, Skype, which I used to connect with the entire community across the world. And students, they created relationships. Even I have so many friends right now through Skype, because I developed some positive relationships with them. Then there is Minecraft, and there are so many other tools which can be used to actually foster social emotional learning. The idea of gratitude, right? The idea of strong relationships, the idea of being happy, the idea of being fulfilled, all this can be taken up by social emotional learning by some technology tools. So this was something which I had pioneered. I'm really proud of it. And then I introduced that to many in my community. And I'm a master trainer, so it went through me to so many people in the entire country. And I think all of us know Mark Sperwell very nicely. So Mr. Mark Sperwell was very very impressed, and he also I also had a session with him, and he adopted some of those technologies, and he said it is something which is very different. So that was one thing which I'm proud of also.
Right, ma'am. That's really a thing to be proud of, and I am too. And like, I really love to know that you talked about social emotional learning with happiness, and that just reminded me of a quote that the joy of learning is just as indispensable, just in study as breathing is in running. So it's just like when you're learning and learning with happiness, nothing can stop you. So like, you should like stop something when you're unhappy, not when you're uncomfortable. So like, when you're unhappy, then you should stop it. But if you're uncomfortable, that uncomfortable can turn to happiness when you try to become comfortable around it. And like, that's so lovely to know that you're like using different tools like Flipgrid, Skype, and my tool that is really love close to my heart, that's Minecraft,
Yeah.
and for collaboration. So like, I totally understand how you talked about Skype for making friends and all, and connections with people. Because like, when we connect with people online and we get to know them, we get to know about the work they're doing, we just learn how to collaborate and then communicate, and that indirectly helps to enhance our forces as well. So that's really lovely to know about how you talked about social emotional learning and its importance in today's world. Right, ma'am. So in the end, I'd like to know, ma'am, where can we find you online?
You can find me everywhere. I am on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, and a bit on Instagram, not much on Instagram. But
Okay.
yeah, you'll definitely find me online on Teams with my students, which is a 24 into 7 type of thing, and also on WhatsApp with my students and many other people also.
Right, so I'm gonna share the social media handles of ma'am in the description box for you all to check out. And before we end the podcast, ma'am, I would like to know any message that you would like to give to the audience watching you.
Uh, I didn't think of that. Yeah, okay. I can say that be persistent with what you're doing. If you believe in what you're doing, you are definitely doing good. If you're happy in what you're doing something really good.
Right, ma'am. And that's why we say persistence is the key to success.
Right.
Right. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was really lovely connecting with you today and hearing your insights, which were wonderful. So I had a great time.
Thank you, Ramya.
Thank you, ma'am. Right. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next episode. Till then, each one teach 10.